Welcome back. Here we are in the final fixes video. In this video, we are going to annihilate the rest of the remaining worth mentioning issues that are left with the Project E30. I'm just going to jump right into fixing things, and the first thing we're going to look at is the air conditioning system. I've done a lot of diagnosing on this because it doesn't work. It doesn't blow any cold air. And I've determined that there's no electrical issues, there's no actual problems with the compressor, or there's no leaking refrigerant gas. I mean, everything's solid, so the only thing left was the compressor clutch. When I got to looking a little bit closer, I noticed that the clutch hub was completely shot. It's a two-piece design where it's held together with a little rubber damper ring in the middle that holds the two pieces together. Well, that damper ring has completely deteriorated and separated, meaning those two pieces are no longer one, meaning when you engage the AC compressor clutch, the compressor does not spin. So I did a lot of research finding all the old AC compressor part numbers and cross-referencing with Porsche and Audi and just finding something that might work with this, and I figured out that the compressor in here actually is the same that was used in a lot of Porsches and even some Mercedes. So I found a compressor clutch hub that I think will work, but I won't really know until I get the old one off and try it on there. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna try to replace that compressor clutch hub. Let's get to it. So here you can see a good view of how this center portion of the clutch hub is separated from the outer portion. And this might be a little difficult to get off, so let's try some things and see if we can make this happen. here's the pulley taking off the compressor, and the bearing, it's not quite as grindy as it was before because I put a little bit of lubricant in there, but you can still feel some grittiness in that bearing, so still definitely worth being replaced because I don't think it'll last a tremendous amount of time more. Now to take this out, there's a little clip in here that you just have to pry out of its races, and then I plan to use a socket and just pound the bearing out of the pulley with a hammer. So let's give that a try. And there's the clip out. So I'm going to use a socket, looks like a 36mm 3/4 inch type socket. See if we can knock this bearing out. There is the bearing. There's this little, I don't know what it is, this little shim plate that comes out. I want to make sure that goes back in there. Now before I go and put a new bearing in here, I want to clean this pulley up and make sure we don't have any oil that's going to contaminate our AC clutch further on down the road. So let's go do that. So this cleaned up pretty nice. All the grease is off there, and now it's time to drive the new bearing into place. So I found a new old stock bearing, same brand as the old one, which is Nachi, and I'll put a part number in the description of this video so you know what to look for, but it is something you probably won't find in a local auto parts store. It's kind of a special size. And it's specific to these Nippon Denso 10P15E style compressor pulleys. Yeah, there it is, brand new. I got this shipped to me in like 2 days, so I was very fortunate. It was only like $10.50 for a brand new bearing. It was new old stock, someone was trying to get rid of it, and I just happened to be the right person looking for one. So here we go. We'll try and drive this in. Before we do that, I've got to put this little shim thing in there that was in there originally. So we'll slide that in there. Then we'll just tap this into place. Looks like that'll work pretty well. This is a 48mm socket. And what you want to do is hit on the outer portion of the bearing, not the inner part. So we will just lightly tap this into place. Alright, so now I'm going to move down to a smaller diameter one so it can be pressed into the recess of this pulley. This is a 45mm. And there we are. That is fully seated. And now that bearing is nice. Brand new. Alright, so let's get this back on the compressor. Okay, so I finally have the new compressor clutch hub on there, and you can see that this inner portion is now spinning with the outer portion, and I'm turning the compressor over by hand right here. So we know that this compressor clutch hub fits, so that's really good. And the spacing between the clutch pulley here and the clutch hub looks pretty much right. I put the same number of spacers or shims in there as was on the old clutch hub, so it should be okay. But we'll put it all back together and turn it on and see if it works. So let's get this thing mounted back up. right, so everything's mounted up. So let's turn the car on, turn the AC on, and see if it works. It's the moment of truth. Now that's a result. All right, next on the agenda is replacing the front air dam. The old one is pretty beat up and it's held together with some zip ties. Let's take a look. So as you can see, this is looking pretty tatty. We've got various zip ties holding this thing on there, and all of the clips that hold this thing in, they're pretty much broken, and this thing's just flopping around. It looks pretty low rent, so I've got a solution. Over here on the bench, I have a brand new air dam. It is an aftermarket IS style air dam. It's made of ABS plastic, so it's not the sturdiest of things, but I think once it's mounted up, it'll look pretty good and hold its shape pretty well. I wouldn't want something underneath the car that will catch a bump and not flex, so I think this will actually work out just fine. I do plan to repaint this with some satin black spray paint, something that flexes with plastic, so that should work pretty well. I just don't want to leave it this raw plastic coloring because it'll start to oxidize and fade and look pretty bad, so we want to paint it. Now, to accommodate mounting up this new spoiler, I've got this set of brand new clips. There's 10 clips in here. These are the BMW clips. I just found them online. It was $24. Definitely worth it to install this new air dam. Now, I've read that these aftermarket air dams don't fit up super well, but you might have to sand down these clip mounts right here. So we'll see what kind of modifications needed, but I think we can make this mount up and look pretty good. So let's get to painting this thing up. So that is the front air dam now complete. I went ahead and just sprayed it with some clear coat to give it sort of a gloss black look. Because originally I put on the satin black and it just looked kind of off. It didn't look very finished and it almost came off as semi-gloss black and it had some sheen to it. So I was like, yeah, that doesn't look very finished. So I went ahead and hit this with some clear coat. So now it is definitely gloss black and I think it looks pretty good, you know, all the way around. Pretty decent. Definitely looks more aggressive than the original lip, and the new clips will make sure that this stays in place for a long time. So I'd call that a result. All right, so now we're moving on to doing some paint work on the rear C-pillar. Let's take a look at it. So back here is some pretty nasty clear coat failure here on the rear C-pillar, and this has actually been repainted at some point because you can actually see it kind of following the window seal all the way down. Now, I want to repaint this section because it just looks really bad, but I'm not going to do this whole pillar just because I don't want to do too much and I have limited amount of paint. So I'm going to actually probably cut it off right about here and then right about here. Sand this area smooth, primer it, and then move the masking barrier back, hit it with the color, and then move the masking barrier back a little bit more, and then hit it with clear coat, and it should make this look pretty nice. Now, it won't be a perfect result, but it'll be something that no longer draws your eye to it. So I'll be painting this with some of that 3-stage paint kit that I bought when I did the rust repair. That stuff works really well. It matches the paint perfectly, and the clear coat is really a good product. So I'm going to use the remaining amount of that. Again, I don't have too much left, but it should be enough to just do this area right here. So let's get to sanding this smooth. Alright, so this is the finished product, and it's not too bad. You know, it's pretty shiny. It's no longer an immediate eyesore. Of course, you still have these blend lines that I've put in here, top and bottom, and then you've got some orange peel going on in the clear coat. So obviously not perfect, but already a marked improvement. Now, 2 weeks has elapsed since I actually finished this because the clear coat was so soft even a couple days after applying it. It's just a matter of waiting when you're applying clear coat from an aerosol can. Now it's time to finish this off so it looks a little bit more blended in with the rest of the paintwork of the vehicle. And I'm going to be doing that through wet sanding, where we actually take a piece of very fine grit sandpaper, put some water on here, and just lightly sand it so we make this a smooth finish. So let's jump right into wet sanding down this finish. Okay, with the area masked off, we'll wet it down one more time, basically applying lubricant to the surface. And then I've got a soft foam block wrapped in 1200 grit wet and dry sandpaper that I'm going to just lightly start scuffing the surface and trying to remove that orange peel, as well as starting to blend these two paint lines. So let's get to it. All right, so let's take a break real quick. So I've been working this with the 1200 grit sandpaper, and I've dried off the surface, and just to look at my progress here, and we can see pretty clearly the orange peel in the paint because they are these low spots where the sandpaper aren't touching. So there are these shiny black divots in here, and where the sandpaper is actually having success smoothing off are these nice smooth surfaces right here. So you can tell I spent a lot of time kind of working on this blend area right here, and I've taken out some ripples in the clear coat that just kind of pooled up down here, and now it's really smooth. So I need to focus my attentions further up the C-pillar right here, because you can see how much more of that orange peel remains up here, and I need to work on this blend line just a little bit more. But honestly, we're making good progress. So we'll be done with the 1200 grit here soon, and then we can move up to the 2000 grit and 3000 grit just to give it a nice, really smooth surface. So let's continue on. So this is what it looks like after passing with 2000 grit and 3000 grit sandpaper. So now it's a very smooth finish. I mean, it's definitely ready for cutting now. So next we're going to use some polishing compound to remove these really fine scratches and hopefully buff this to a shiny luster. So let's get to that. And here is the finished result. Not too shabby. There's a couple fine scratches still in it, but again, not looking for perfection, just looking to eliminate the eyesore, and the transitions are smoothed out, so it looks pretty good overall. You know, someone quickly glancing at this would never know that this area was repainted. Even someone looking pretty closely may not realize this whole section has been repainted. So, pretty happy with that result. All right, with the paintwork now out of the way, there's one final thing left to do, and that's fixing a broken headlight. Let's take a look at it. The headlight in question is actually a high beam here on the driver's side. Now these are actual glass headlights. All E30s have glass headlights, and as you can see, there's a massive crack that spans the entire lens here. So most E30s have sealed beam headlights right here, so it's easy to just buy a replacement headlight, swap it in, and they're fairly inexpensive. However, as this is an 89, it has a special housing. It looks like a sealed beam headlight, but it really isn't. It has a light bulb behind there that is replaceable, and the housing itself is made of plastic and is adjustable. So ultimately what that means is the only way to fix this is to buy a brand new part from BMW. So I went out and bought that part, and it's over on the bench. Let's go take a look. And here it is. You can see it came in a special BMW box that's been sealed from the factory. And this is the headlight. It has a glass lens. It says DOT on the top. It's made by Hella, at least the lens portion is. And the backside is plastic, and it has a little drain tube at the top there. And it's got these 4 locating brackets here so you can adjust the position of the headlight. And then right here it comes with a plug where the light bulb would go, so we'll just swap out the bulb from the old housing and we'll just mount this up in its place. This is not a cheap part. It was $96, I think. Not a cheap thing to replace, so if you have a later model E30, you'll probably have this style headlight housing. And if the glass breaks, there are no replacement lenses, at least not that I could find. So get ready to bite the bullet for nearly $100 a pop. Anyway, let's get this thing into the car. Now to remove these, it looks like it's held in place by 3 adjustment screws, and then these little plastic retaining clips that hold the adjusting screw. And there's 2 little tangs on each one of these plastic clips that allow them to slide past the brackets on the housing themselves. So I'm going to lubricate them with some silicone spray, and hopefully they don't break because they are just old hard plastic. So here we go. Okay, so that's 1 clip done, 2 more to go. This is that little clip that I was talking about. It's got a ball cup in the middle of it, and that's where the adjustment screws go into. Okay, I'm going to try a different approach. I know that you can take out this whole assembly as one unit, so we're going to try that real quick, see if we can get better access to some of these things. Okay, that's all 3 of them off. Put these back on the rods. And just like that, Project E30 is done. Now, I could have called this car complete a few videos ago, but I just wasn't happy until all of the little cosmetic and little mechanical things were fully taken care of. And now this car is fully mechanically working and electrically working and cosmetically complete. It's been a long road and I'm tired, but this car is finally done. Let's take a look at the fixes we made in this video. So starting off with a couple things that I didn't cover in the video. I wasn't sure how it would turn out, so I didn't get it on video, but I actually wet sanded the hood as well and buffed it out, and it turned out pretty dang good. It did have a Mako paint job here on the hood. It was really thick in the orange peel area, and now it is like glass, and it looks really nice. It really transformed the front end of this car. Another thing I didn't touch on, but I went ahead and did, was put a European license plate on the front. I just felt like the front of the car looked a little bit bare, and so I found this old German plate, and it looks like it's a Frankfurt license plate. I have no idea how old it is or what vehicle it's off of. Don't really care. I think it looks pretty neat, and got a nice little license plate frame to frame it and mount it to the front bumper. Pretty easy job, didn't get it on video. But additionally, on the front end, of course, we put this new IS style splitter, and I did go ahead and paint it in black and then clear coat it so it's a little bit shiny, and I think it was a good route to go instead of leaving it with that satin black finish. Now it looks complete. And then we have the high beam headlight over here, brand new BMW part. Now I will admit it does stand out a little bit against the other headlights here because the rest of them have little rock chips in them and whatnot. But you know what, I don't care at this point. I think it looks pretty nice, and really it's not too noticeable. Now let's go on to the back side of the car. And here we are, our passenger side C-pillar. It's nice and smoothed over, and I think the end result is pretty nice. It's not too obvious that it's been painted, certainly not at first glance, and that's exactly what I was going for here. That's a result. Feels really weird saying this car's done, but I think this is as far as I want to take it. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. But is it nice? Is it nicer than a lot of the ones I see out there? Yeah, and why take it to that next level when it really, when you just look at it, it's never going to exceed what it is right now. I think this is a good stopping point for this car. The only way to go forward with this would be to do a different engine in it, or rebuild the transmission, or do something like that. And that is when you get into another realm of expenditures that I'm just not ready to take on at this moment. I've definitely spent more money than I thought I would originally, definitely more money than I wanted to spend originally, but I think the end result makes it all worthwhile. I mean, it just really looks nice. So it's crazy to say it, but there's only one video remaining in the Project E30 playlist, and that is the total cost summary. I'm going to go through line by line every single part that I bought for this vehicle and outlay how much I spent over the course of this year. It's kind of a shocking number. In the first video of this series, I had a lot of comments saying this car could be turned around for $1,000 more. But in the next video, I'll show that if you had a similar starting point that I did and you want your car to end up like this, it's not going to be just $1,000 more to spend on it. And certainly not just a month's worth of work. So, in the next video, we'll go over those costs and we'll see how deep in a Project E30 really gets. So as always, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys again soon.